Welcome to the live stream. That's the wrong scene. There we go. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. I love when a live stream builds up a mythos of its own, a set of memes, like, you know, the gallon of PCP. This by the way is not a gallon of PCP because PCP is yellow in the comedy sketch that we're referring to, not actual PCP. That would be inappropriate. Kids, ask your parents what PCP is. This is just a gallon of, this is raspberry lemonade. I like to try to stay hydrated. Not as consistently as some people, but occasionally I'm like, I try to stay hydrated. It's good for your kidneys, good for your liver. I don't know. And good for your blood pressure. Keeps your sodium levels low. These are kids, ask your parents what it's like to get older and then to have to, you know, you're in your 20s, you're like, I should stay hydrated. It's good for my body. But then if you don't, there are no consequences. And then the older you get, your doctor is like, you should really stay hydrated. Your friggin' kidneys are suffering and your blood pressure is too high. And you're like, I'm going to die. And then you start walking around with a jug of water because you're like, well, if I just have this with me all the time and chug it, I'll... Anyway, but it's a raspberry lemonade, not PCP. PCP is just regular lemonade. Because in that comedy sketch, the guy has what he claims to be a jug of PCP, and it's yellow. So, the gallon of PCP is one of our live stream memes. Yeah. My favorite part of that sketch is he's like, so you like PCP, huh? And he goes, got a gallon. I mean, yeah, got a gallon. Oh, man. Oh, man. That's illegal, right? Oh, anyway. Somebody asked yesterday, or last stream, did Bardwell take a chug of distilled water? I did not take a chug of distilled water, but I did take. My wife has one of those little pellet ice makers. Got her for Christmas several years ago. Best thing I ever did. She crunches that stuff all day. She loves crunchy ice. And when the ice maker is down, she has a legitimate mental health crisis. And you have to clean ice makers because they build up scale on you have to clean them out with vinegar and stuff. It's really, anyway, there's buildup. And so we figured if you feed it distilled water, it'll get less mineral buildup because the distilled water it shouldn't have any minerals, but apparently it does because eventually we do get buildup still. I don't know where the buildup comes from. And I'll reuse those jugs for my water jugs. Yeah, Blenty.
Hot tip, you need to do reverse osmosis to get zero. Distilled is close to zero. Reverse osmosis is truly zero.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that distilled water would carry any of the minerals with it, but I guess it does.
I think it's because you're fractioning it and you still get some, because there's a percentage, when you get to the boiling. I don't know exactly how it works, but my understanding is that you have to have reverse osmosis to be truly zero.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yeah. So we buy the distilled water from Walmart. We put it in the ice maker. And I don't know if you know, Blenty, you actually may think this is interesting. The first of these pellet ice makers that I got, and this is the soft, crunchy ice, the nugget ice that they sell. We just use tap water, and our water is well water, so of course it has a lot of minerals. And the ice maker started making this horrible screeching noise. And I took it apart to try to clean it. Well, first we used vinegar and we used acetic acid, and that didn't work because it was so encrusted with minerals. And so I took it apart. I was like, well, this damn thing is unusable. It was making horrible noises. It was unacceptable. And so I took it apart, and I did, in fact, clean it out and get it back together again. But I was just like, this is not, I can't live like this. It was clearly not made to be opened up and cleaned. I broke it. The third time I opened it up to clean it, I broke it. And I was like, this is just not okay. But the way those nugget ice makers work is, so normally like an ice maker, you'll have some kind of a compartment. It'll fill with water. The water will freeze, right? No. The way these things work is that there is a spiral, and the spiral has the refrigerant running through it. And the water freezes on the surface of the spiral, and there's a scraper as the spiral turns. And the scraper scrapes the frost off the spiral and packs it into. So basically, the soft nugget ice is like OSB, if you're familiar with wood. It's like taking wood shavings or MDF, maybe is better. It's like taking wood shavings and packing it into a mold. And that's why the ice is soft. Did you know that, Blenty?
I did not.
Isn't that cool? I thought it was so cool when I saw how they do it. That's why it's not just marketing. It's not just a smaller ice cube. It is the structure of the ice cube is different than a normal ice cube. Yeah.
I was just going to. Chad is upset. I want you to know that reverse osmosis or distilled water is not good for you to drink. Half of Chad is telling me that.
I don't drink. I'm not drinking it. Okay. I'm not drinking it. I had an empty jug of distilled water the distilled water went in the ice maker. I took the empty gallon jug and filled it with tap water, which has a lot of minerals. Now my wife is consuming a lot of distilled water because she crunches ice all day. But I assume if she had an electrolyte imbalance from drinking too much distilled water, we would know. Because she'd be, I don't know. Believe me. I appreciate the concern. But no. if I take tap water or well water and put it in a distilled water jug, is that bad? No, that's not bad. Okay. Anyway, so that's where we're at. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about FPV. So, and we've got questions queuing up about FPV. However, there's one topic that I wanted to start the live stream off, and it relates to everyone's favorite topic in the world of FPV, and that is the FCC, or the FAA, rather, the FAA. And it goes back to a topic, we, Blunty, we talked on the last live stream about a change in the FAA's priorities with regards to enforcement of rules. That the FAA has traditionally had an educate and a very sort of soft, hey, don't do that, that we're not going to just, unless you just blatantly, like if you fly your drone over the Super Bowl, F you, we're going to put the hammer down on you. But in general, when average hobbyists break the rules, the FAA comes and tries to educate and doesn't immediately come out with fines and or referral for criminal charges. The FAA cannot file criminal charges. They are not a criminal. They're not a law enforcement organization. They're a regulatory organization. They can impose fines, but they can refer you to the Department of Justice, the FBI, or local law enforcement. I don't think they would do that. They can refer you for enforcement to law enforcement. They traditionally haven't done that. And there was an official dicta, a directive from the president, from the executive, for whom the FAA works, to say that there's a way of approaching that. And they basically said that any airspace violations of public safety, or there was a third one. What was the third one, Blunty? Do you remember? I'm blanking on it.
Why don't we pull up the document?
Yeah, okay. So the point was that we actually have the text of this directive, and it's worse than we thought. Like, when I first saw that, I was like, well, how aggressive are they going to be? What is a violation of public safety anyway? And there's some room for interpretation there. And I know, why would I give the FAA any sort of benefit of the doubt? But so we have the actual text of that document now. Let me zoom in here so we can read it on stream. This changed FAA Order 2153C provides for a special enforcement program applicable to UAS operations that endanger the public. That's it. Violate airspace restrictions or further a crime. The further a crime one didn't really stick in my mind, because it's if I'm using a drone in the furtherance of another crime, well, obviously that's going to get a harsh penalty, right? Violating airspace restrictions. Well, violate airspace restrictions. You fly into controlled airspace. Okay, that's you're likely. But even some of those got education instead of referral for criminal prosecution and harsh fines. Endanger the public, to me, was the one that always sort of there's some wiggle room there. Anyway, where's the actual text here, Blunty? Change 13?
Correct. Change 13, and then you scroll all the way to the bottom.
Scroll all the way.
So this is an existing document from the FAA that has been added to over time.
I see.
And the change 13 is the newest change that includes this information.
Okay, so we'll go all the way to the bottom. Most of the text in here is just stuff that has already existed since time immemorial. But here's the new one. This one? Compliance and Enforcement Bulletin number 2026-1. Yes. Here's what I think, and Blunty, again, I value your opinion on this also, so tell me if there's anything you think we need to focus on. The part that stood out to me most was this paragraph, which defines what endanger the public includes. What do you think, Blunty? Should we dive in on that? Is there more?
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's work through it.
Okay. Operations that endanger the public. See, you could say, okay, is that literally anything, or is that actual stuff that I would agree endangers the public, right? See the difference? Well, it's more like literally everything. Operations that endanger the public include, and again, just to basically, what this says is that the FAA must refer to the Office of the Inspector General any incident that meets these qualifications, and basically, like, just put the hammer down on anybody who does these things. You know, takes away their latitude to be like, oh, we're just going to educate them. Operations that endanger the public include operations over people when the requirements in 14 CFR 10739 subpart D are not complied with. In other words, if you don't follow the rules about operations over people under 250 grams, I'm not going to go into them. If you fly over people in violation of the FAA rules, that endangers the public. Operations beyond visual line of sight in violation of the FAA rules. You fly beyond you fly outside of 2 or 3 statute miles, basically further than you could plausibly argue that you can see the drone, or you put your FPV goggles down and you don't have a spotter, boom, screw you. Referral to the Office of the Inspector General and serious fines. Operations that create an undue hazard to persons or property in violation of basically any violation of the FAA rules about drones. And, operation of a weaponized UAS. Oh, well, I assume that they were always going to come down hard on that. But again, there's maybe a difference between, I put a firework on a drone just for fun, and I put a pew-pew on a drone and flew it around and pew-pewed at people. Right? One of those things is like, yeah, obviously you're going to get in trouble for that. And the other is, well, so like, yeah. Basically, and we should put a link to this in the chat, Blunty, if you would. But basically, they're taking the most aggressive definition of all of these things and saying anybody who violates FAA rules with regards to drones in basically any way should get the harshest possible penalties. You want to dive in a little more deeply or more nuanced, Blunty? You want to add your 2 cents? I love your 2 cents.
Yeah, real quick. Let's look at the document again. You know, we looked at the public, endanger the public. I just want to be clear that violate established airspace restrictions, right? That doesn't just mean, as this states here, that doesn't just mean flying in controlled airspace, right? That's number 2, operations in controlled airspace. But number 1 is operations within the airspace without remote ID. Now, that's a lot of us, right? And we fly like a lot of people around here. I'm not saying I am, but I'm saying people in our hobby, people like me, right, fly without remote ID on a daily basis. And normally we're not worried about it because there's not enforcement that happens. But what we're telling you is, who knows what will happen? But what they've stated, what they've put out in documentation, is that they are now required to report these issues directly to the Office of the Inspector General or have their boss approve them not sending it. Basically, this says, like...
What does the OIG do? What does that mean? Like, if you said, I'm referring you to the FBI, then I would be like, okay, I'm going to get criminal prosecution. Well, who is the OIG, and what does it mean when you get referred to the OIG?
I think it's just like the sentencing like stuff, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay. It's bad.
But the way they, what I was going to say is, so I just want to point that out. And then if you scroll down to the next page, there's a section of actions, which is really the important part and where this is stemming from, right? The idea that this is going to happen is stemming from the action section at the bottom. So if you scroll down, so if you look at number 1, right, it says when a person operates a UAS and in doing so endangers the public, violates airspace restrictions, or furtherance an element of crime, right? And again, we just defined those things. They're bigger than you think they are, right? Flying without remote ID, flying with your goggles on without a spotter, right? These all count as these issues. The FAA investigative personnel will send the case to Chief Counsel for legal enforcement action. Compliance and administrative actions, the things previously that were used, will not be used to address such conduct, except as permitted by the school. Basically, it's denying them the ability to do this, right? Right.
And compliance means, like, the day, in other words, the official policy is that the days when you would get a phone call from your local FSO and they would say, hey, we got a couple reports that you were flying without a spotter. We just want you to know, you're not allowed to do that. Well, you know what? Maybe you could not do that again. Cool. Hey, talk to you later, buddy. And then it's only after like the 14th time that they're, hey, it's me again. We're going to have to start fining you. Those days officially are over. Right, Plenty?
Well, presumably. We don't know that for sure, but the document says it is.
That's what the policy is.
I work in government stuff, so I know the things written aren't always the things that happen, okay?
That is true.
But what I'm telling you is the things that are written are stating that this is the new policy, okay? Mm-hmm. So the thing that it should be, you should also consider is Section 3 here, right? So in limited instances, program offices may forgo referring the matter to
the general counsel.
agency, even if it meets the criteria, paragraph 1, with the approval of your program office director and the chief counsel. Basically, you got to get with your boss and go, hey, do we really need to push this up to the big guys? Maybe we don't, but our director has to provide justification for why we're not doing this, right? So basically, it's like, you have to do this. Your boss can maybe get you out of this, or maybe get rid of some of these cases, and maybe we'll find a way to do that. But pretty much you have to know we're going to do this, okay? Now, that's the first part. The second part is number 4, okay, which adds a very vague section for remote pilot certificate holders. And my understanding is the way
that's 107
is only 107, right? So what this is saying is for 107 pilots, you're under extra scrutiny that's not directly written. This says when a holder of a remote pilot certificate engages in operational conduct that demonstrates a lack of care, judgment, or responsibility, FAA generally will proceed with both remedial legal enforcement to revoke the remote pilot certificate and punitive legal enforcement action in the form of a civil penalty. Again, this is completely different in a separate section for recreational, saying like, if you have a 107 and you do anything we think lacks care, judgment, or responsibility, we have to remove your certificate and fine you. Again, this is what's written. This is what they're going to do. This is what it says.
This is not you violated a rule. You flew without a spotter. You flew beyond visual line of sight. You flew over people without the appropriate conditions. This is just anything we think demonstrates a lack of care, judgment, or responsibility in our complete discretion. Is that right?
Yes, correct. This gives them the discretion. There's no defined section in this document that says what a lack of care, judgment, or responsibility is, right? It's not a defined thing. It is a legal term in this case, which means it's kind of up there to their discretion, and what the lawyers think is a lack of care, judgment, or responsibility. And this says that if they feel it falls under any of those things, they have to remove your license for 107 and fine you. And this doesn't have a section where it goes, it's just really messed up because, again, this document makes them not have a choice. We've seen discretionary handling. Right. We'll just repeat again. We've seen discretionary handling this entire time. Up to now and including now, there has been discretionary handling. And this suggests that will go away and that you will have to be reported. You will have to get fined. You'll have to have your license removed in certain cases, things like that. And it's just certainly concerning. One of the most concerning things I think we've seen for the hobby, if it goes through. And if this actually, if this gets enforced in the way that it's written.
And I know it always sucks. Like, the best case scenario is that the written policy is reasonable, proportionate, logical, effective, and then it is implemented as written. That's the best case scenario. That never plays out in real life. But another scenario is that the policy is good and it's implemented badly. Another scenario is that the policy is bad, but then the enforcing body ignores it and implements it in a reasonable way, right? These are slowly sort of worse and worse situations. And right now we seem to be in a situation where the policy as written is bad, and our only hope is that the implementing body finds a way to temper it. And that's bad. Because first of all, they could just implement it as written. That's the safest thing for them to do. And then a bad policy is effectively implemented and it's bad for us. But at any point, even if you have a bad written policy that then is being tempered by the implementation, at any point that can change. And I would like to address the comment, like people say, well, look, if you weren't you're breaking the rules, so screw you. You deserve to get punished. It's like that's a very, I would say, juvenile approach, right? Because like if a rule is bullshit and people break the rule, then do they deserve penalties? Like, only a very sort of simple-minded person believes that every rule as written, if you break any law or any rule as written, regardless of the effectiveness or the morality or whatever of the rule, then you deserve a punishment. Like, no adult should have that mindset. We should all like evaluate the rules, and we could say, look, if you break the rules and you get caught, then you're going to get in trouble, and that's an understood consequence of breaking the rules. So like, maybe don't cry about it, but like, we could still acknowledge, right? We could still acknowledge that we could have disproportionate penalties. We can have unreasonable rules. We can have ineffective rules. And we can say, I understand why people would break those rules, even if I also understand that, they're going to get consequences when they're caught. We can have that nuanced viewpoint. But like, that's the world we live in now. And the only thing that remains is to see how the enforcement plays out. And I feel like we've been saying this for 5+ years. When remote ID came down, it was like, well, it could be bad, it could be not so bad, and we just have to see how it plays out. And of course, that's always the state that you're in when people start passing shitty rules that you don't like. Your only hope is to see how bad it is. And we're back there again. But what's changed here, I think, is the window of how bad it could be has changed. Like, it has always been possible that the FAA would bring the hammer down with punitive fines and or criminal prosecution, referral for criminal prosecution. That has always been on the table. But unless you did something truly boneheaded, you probably weren't going to get that. And now the official policy is that anyone who does any of those things and comes to the FAA's attention is going to get those. So if you're a person, here's the takeaway. If you're a person who breaks the rules, and many people are, then, and you just are like, well, if I get caught, it probably won't be that bad and I probably won't get caught. You should know that the potential consequences if you get caught have been, the water's just a little hotter for you. Make your decisions as you will, I guess. Blunty, anything to add?
No, I'll just say that, as always, the FPV Freedom Coalition is on top of this stuff and doing the best we can to fight this in every way possible, discussing things in back channels and talking about how things are going to be enforced and discussing with different people, So we'll provide you as much information as we can as it goes, but unfortunately, this kind of got dropped on everybody at once.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah. 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 I'm just going to go on record as saying that I think a lot of these rules are stupid. I'm not going to like go in on like specifics because that's not a conversation I'm sort of like ideologically or intellectually prepared to have. But I think we can look at the rules and we can say like a ethical law or an ethical rule is based on a desire for an outcome. Okay. Why is murder illegal? Well, because we don't want people killing people because that's bad. Okay. We agree that people not killing people is a desirable outcome. So then we make laws that try to affect the outcome of making it less likely that people kill people. Okay. If you have a law that is based on a undesirable or unethical goal or an ill-defined goal, or if you have a law or a rule that is based on a desirable goal but then doesn't accomplish it, or if you have a law or rule that accomplishes the goal but at an unreasonable cost, okay? Those are three ways in which I think a law or a rule can fail. It can be unjust, and then I think that I understand why people ignore them. I guess another one would be a law or a rule that simply is impossible or unreasonable to comply with. Like if they said blinking your eyes is illegal. No, this is a hypothetical. It's an extreme for the sake of example. But if they said blinking your eyes is illegal, then no one would comply with that because everyone blinks their eyes subconsciously and necessarily. So laws that can't be complied with. Another example of that was the no-fly zone over ice operations, except we're not going to tell you where the ice operations are. So like there's this no-fly zone that just manifests and there's no way for you to know if you're in it. That's a rule that can't be complied with, and so it's unethical. I think that if you look at the FAA regulations around remote ID, some of the regulations, like rules about flights over people, I don't fly over people most of the time. And when I do fly over people, it's under specific circumstances that I think makes it ethical. And again, we don't need to go into the specifics. That's not the point. There are many of the FAA regulations around drones that I think either don't accomplish the desired outcome, they impose an unreasonable onus, they're difficult or impossible to comply with, and I think that I understand why a lot of people don't follow those rules. And I think if your perspective is you're just a rule breaker, shut up, come in line, like stop licking the boots of the authorities. Like I'm not a teenager who is just like, screw you, you can't tell me what to do, and just rejects all form of authority. But I'm also, and I don't think you should be a person who says that just because a rule exists, you're just happy to look at people who get in trouble for breaking it and go neener. Because everyone, I think everyone decides what rules they feel like are going to be right to follow and which ones they're going to sort of maybe skirt or enter a gray area. And so, I think that's a valuable thing for adults to have in a functioning and healthy society. Anyway. Okie dokie. That's where we're at. Okay, next up. And again, we got questions queuing. In fact, this was one of the questions. And also, we haven't gotten to Super Chats yet. I will get to Super Chats. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this. Have you seen this issue with Skyzone Goggles? Or what are the best analog FPV goggles for under $200? And can I find this video quickly? It's on YouTube. It's in my YouTube history for sure.
It's in the chat.
Thanks, Blunty. You're the best. This is it. So this video is from Niels Vo. And Niels Vo flew the Skyzone 040 Pro goggles. The 040 Pro goggles from Skyzone have been my sort of go-to as a budget analog goggle. And I say that despite the fact that I never reviewed them. I don't think I ever reviewed them. I reviewed the 04X, but not the 040. Skyzone never sent me the 040, as far as I know. And I've searched my channel. If I actually reviewed them and I haven't been able to find that video for some reason, then somebody remind me. But I searched my channel. I didn't see it. Why don't you just remember all the products you've ever reviewed? And the 04X Skyzone goggles have been a very solid recommendation for a long time. The 04X is very solid. So when the 040 came out, it seemed like just a slightly budget version of the 04X with different screens. And I was like, okay. And I will say, although I haven't flown them personally, I'm in contact with a lot of people out there. And I am in contact with some corporate training programs, shall we call them. Companies that train a lot of drone pilots, say 50 or 100 drone pilots over the course of a year. And because people reach out to me and they say, hey, I have a training company, I train pilots, and what equipment should I use? So I keep contact with them, because when you have somebody who's training tens of or even hundreds of people a year, that's good data that lets you get past the I have one report, but I don't know how seriously to take it. And so several of these people use the Skyzone 040 in their programs and have had no problem with it. So based on that, I've continued to recommend it. But Niels Vo says he flew it, and unlike me, and unlike these training programs who are just training noobs, right? Noobs are not very latency sensitive. I am not a top class racer, extremely latency sensitive, although I do feel like I can feel some latency. Niels Vo flew the Skyzone 040 Pro and was like, this is garbage, immediately.
And then I got on my phone and started Googling Skyzone 040 Pro latency. And what I found is one singular guy on Reddit in a comment section complaining about high latency, but he got destroyed so hard that he ended up deleting his account. And so there are two possibilities. Either me and this guy are wrong and the entire internet is right, or me and this guy are right and everyone recommending these goggles is just completely full of shit and has no idea what they're talking about.
By the way, as an empiricist, I would like to point out there's a third option, which is that you and that guy have goggles with bad latency and other people have goggles with good latency. But good for him. He went on and made an app that does latency testing of the goggles. And when I saw him, most people who do goggle latency testing on the internet use a flawed methodology that does not actually measure the latency they think they're measuring. He did it right. He did it right. Good for him. And you can watch his video. And again, the link is in the video description. Link is in the chat. Blunty, thank you for posting that. If you want the details, but I'm going to just spoil the video. The 040 Pro has shitty latency. Average of 30 milliseconds, which for an analog goggle is terrible. Analog goggles should have in the best case, like with Skyzone goggles, should have about 4 or 5 milliseconds of latency, glass to glass. In typical cases, it's got 16 to 20 milliseconds. And that seems high, but you know, a single frame is 16 milliseconds, HDMI readout, yada, yada, yada. But also he measured that there was a lot of jitter, like inconsistent latency. Okay. You're like, oh, that's really bad. He tested it against the Fat Shark HDO2 and found the HDO2 had an average of 9.5 and much better jitter. Tested it with rapid fire, tested it with fusion, basically the same. Yep. He also tested, here's where he tested the jitter and found, and again, very clever for how he tested this stuff. Kudos to him. He actually released the test patterns that he used as a website. It's in the video description, so you can repeat the testing. I believe he developed this, because it's the Zone FPV, which I think is his website. I could be, correct me if I'm wrong about that, but kudos to him for developing this, or whoever did. And tested several goggles, got consistent results, yada, yada, yada. Long story short, the 04X, okay. The 040, 11.1 milliseconds for the 04X. 040, 30 milliseconds. Garbage. Well, 30 milliseconds if you're flying DJI is actually about what you expect, but when you fly analog, you expect better. So, I mean, mostly I just want to put this out there. If you're like a racer who cares a lot about the absolute minimum latency or consistent latency, then the 040 is not the goggle for you. If you are a more typical pilot or a beginner, I can tell you from speaking with people who run training programs with tens or hundreds of students a year going through them, that the 04 Pro is more than adequate. But it's up to you if you care that much about that latency. Hearing that the latency of an analog system is on par with DJI digital is kind of like, that's not the way the world should be.
I don't think point out a couple.
Yeah, Blunty. Yeah, go ahead.
One, people have said in his Discord, other people have tested with his testing method, and they're getting higher latency numbers on their 040 Pros. So it is at least multiple units are having this issue. Yep. Confirmed by users in his Discord.
It's not just one set of goggles that he had. Well, he tested multiple sets, but people are supporting his results.
Yeah. Second, I would think, now I don't know for sure, but I would think that they didn't massively design the pipeline in these goggles to add 30 milliseconds or 20 milliseconds, whatever the difference is, right? It seems more like some software issue where it's stuck in 30 FPS mode, or there's like some issue with the way the screen's drawn.
There's like
an
extra
right?
frame or something, yeah.
And so we can hope, I don't know for sure, I'm just saying, we can hope that Skyzone could get a hold of this and actually fix this. They just didn't actually realize it was a problem because so few users tested and reported this properly. You know, that other user who showed up in our chat just now deleted his messages after people said he was crazy. One thing you and me both have learned in this hobby is these edge cases happen all the time. They're edge cases, but we have so much hardware and so many weird things and open source and all these different manufacturers and all this new hardware and different product lines. Like, there's all kinds of weird, random one-offs or two-offs or products that ship and have a weird bug that people haven't found, like, all the time. And so I'm always super hesitant to tell somebody, like, that's impossible or what you're saying is wrong, right?
It's
never. Just like, yeah,
the best I would say is that's not consistent with my experience. I don't understand how that could happen. I'm not going to tell you you're not having the experience you're having.
Right. I typically try to say, my understanding of the setup is X, right? We've seen in testing X, right? All that I can tell you is with A, B, C, D, E information, I would say this happens, but I can't, there's no way I can 100% that without being in front of the hardware, that sort of thing. And people should remember, I just want to say that because people should probably remember that and not
Niels
just get on Reddit and say you're wrong. So, yeah.
Okay. Good point, Blunty. Yeah. Nils says the Skyzone 04X Pro is also quite bad. I thought it wasn't as bad as the 040, though. I thought if I remember your results right, and granted, there were a lot of spreadsheets. Oh, I love spreadsheets. But I may be misremembering some of them. I thought the 04X Pro wasn't bad, but you're saying the older non-Pro version is good. The 04X Pro is quite bad. Interesting. Can you clarify that for us, Nils? Is the 04X Pro, like, what's the average latency for the 04X Pro? Like, give us numbers, since you're here, since you poked your head up. Also, I want to cover this. Brian Nearson asks, the latency would be due to the module, right? So if you replace the module with a Fusion or something, you're good to go. No, not at all. The video transmitter and the module have no way of adding latency. They don't, in order to add latency, you would have to either physically delay the signal. The signal is propagating at roughly the speed of light through space or through the wires, right? Not quite the speed of light. But basically, the physical propagation of the signal is just a physical property of how fast the signal moves through the wires. In order to delay the signal, you would need some kind of buffering, something to hold the signal, wait, and then retransmit it. The video transmitter doesn't have any buffering of any kind. The module doesn't have any buffering of any kind. All they do is they just receive, demodulate. All that stuff is just happening. It's analog. It's happening at the speed of physics. So there's a little bit of variation in there, but basically the module and the video transmitter don't substantially affect the latency. Any changes in latency you see due to the module of the video transmitter are essentially random noise, is my assertion. And I've had manufacturers, when the very first rapid fire module, or the Clearview, when the very first Clearview module came out with the frame fusion, I asked the creator, how much latency does it add? And he said, none. And I said, how is that possible? And he said, there's no way for it to add latency. It doesn't store the signal in any way. All it's doing is it's like merging the signal, but there's no latency added. I said, how can it process the signal without adding latency? And he was like, that's how analog systems work. Unlike digital systems, which add latency as they process, analog systems, they don't. They just propagate at the speed of physics. Yes, obviously, you can build analog buffers. That is a thing that exists, but you know what I'm saying. So in other words, what can add latency in an analog system? The camera can add latency because there is processing. There is digital processing between the sensor and the output. A camera... analog cameras have low latency, don't they? No. Some analog cameras, like the T-Rex is one that, if I recall correctly, has a highly processed signal. And a T-Rex camera has something like 45 or 50 milliseconds of latency compared to some of the racing-focused cameras, which have like 4 milliseconds of latency. So different analog cameras have substantial differences in latency. And if you're doing testing, you need to be aware. You need to find a way to either subtract out the camera's latency, or you need to do all your testing with the same camera, or use a camera with a known latency. And then the display device, the transition between the RF module and the screen, that is the other place where latency gets injected into the video chain. So probably this is an issue with the goggles, almost certainly. Okay. T-Rex, I'm sorry, T-Rex is less than 2 milliseconds, says Niels Vo. Okay, appreciate the correction. What's the one with like 45, 50 milliseconds of latency that has a ton of processing? I know there's one out there. It's what I get for trying to pick a name out of. I thought it was the T-Rex that had bad latency. Clearly, I'm wrong. Because if Niels says it, Niels is the Ratel 2 has bad latency. Phoenix 2 is 30 milliseconds. Anyway, keep in mind that analog cameras substantially affect the latency, like from 4 milliseconds to like 45 milliseconds, depending on the camera. And then the display can affect the latency. That's where you're going to find those things. Okay. So, now you know. You can decide if that means the 040 Pro. The 040, I maintain that the 040 Pro is still an adequate goggle for a lot of people. Like, just factually, a lot of people use it and are okay with it. But if you are very latency sensitive, if you're a racer who needs the lowest consistent latency because you're flying at top speed, or if you're a freestyle pilot who's very latency sensitive, flying in tight environments, then you might want to skip those goggles. HDZero V2, my go-to.
Until we know more. Hopefully what will happen is Skyzone will catch wind of this pretty quickly and actually figure out what's wrong, and then let us know.
Do a firmware update, hopefully. Okay. Well, now that we're 47 minutes into the live stream and we've covered the 2 top topics I thought of the day, let's take some questions, and we'll start with the super chats. Mike Bundy says, let's effing go. Thank you for $20, Mike Bundy. $4.99 from Arman73. Hi, Joshua. I wouldn't be doing Doc today if it wasn't for you. I want to build FPV. I wouldn't be doing FPV today if it wasn't for you. I want to build an analog ADAS drone. What spares do you recommend? Any Rotor Riot parts? I used the Rotor Riot Brave flight controller and ESC on my ADAS build, and it blew up 2 times. So I would skip the Rotor Riot Brave ESC if you're building an ADAS build. Hey, it could have just been... Now, granted, that was on the 100... That was on the top speed 270 mile an hour... Or 270 kph, 270 mile an hour. It was on the high-speed drone that Chris Rosser designed. So, not your typical 5-inch ADAS build, but it did blow up, and so I would stay away from that. Yeah. What's the top...
Build 6S.
Just build 6. He wants to build an 8S because he wants to taste the power.
Yeah.
Some people just...
There's a lot of assumptions, though. I convince about 60% of the people I tell to get out of 8S and go to 6S. So I think people don't know what they're asking for. I think they think like 8S, super fast, best drone ever. Mm-hmm. But you can go faster than you need to on a 6S, I promise.
I will say that the first time I flew an 8S drone, it was very eye-opening. I definitely can understand why someone would want... The question is like, are you gonna get that what you want from like 6S 2100 kV, right? Right. So 6S 8 out of 6 is 1.33. So 2100 divided by 1.33333. That's equivalent of 1600 kV on 8S. That's about right. You're getting similar RPM out of 6S 2100 kV as you do about 8S 1600 kV. But you can do 8S 1700 kV and get away with it. That's the thing. Going to high voltage lets you go to a higher kV and a higher RPM without the sag associated. Like 6S 2100 kV, you're going to be working your battery. There's something to it. But it's just, I think it's just a novelty, though. Don't think that you need it. You just want it. Well, what do I recommend? I don't know. What's the go-to for an 8S flight controller these days? TBS Lucid, I think, has an 8S. Is 8S capable? Yeah. Oh, you give me way too much credit, sir. If the Phoenix 2 camera had a lot of latency, I think JB would notice. He's used that camera a lot. You're giving me way too much credit, sir.
Hey, can I just say, we're having a latency discussion a little bit today, so I just want to add to that, like, people think you can see latency in all cases, and I think your test with, who did you test with, Stingy?
It was Stingy, Singer Swarm.
Yeah, you did a test with Stingy where you tried 50 hertz versus 250, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my memory, yeah. And you guys couldn't really tell the difference. I mean, it wasn't statistically significant difference that you could tell. And then racers tested it and could tell versus 500.
Ivan Ifimov and another guy who, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but they did a test, and like 9 out of 10 times blind, they could tell the difference.
Yeah, and so my personal belief, and I think what we kind of came to the conclusion of, is that depending on how you fly, right, is one of the main ways you're going to be able to tell. If you've got a really laggy camera, but you're just doing freestyle around a park, doing flips and rolls and whatever, like you're not going to really notice, right, like that there's the latency is high, or you might not notice, right? But if you're doing proxy, if you're racing through gates in the same course, if you're going really close to buildings, if you're hitting gaps really tight, if you're flying through bando windows, right, those are when you're going to notice much more like how close that piece of concrete was and how fast you had to turn before you hit it. And so I think it's also good to consider that, like, your flying condition, what you're flying, how fast you're flying, and where you're flying are going to affect how much that latency matters to you on a daily basis.
Yeah. So. I am not like, I'm a 51-year-old man. I've not got the reflexes of an 18-year-old racer, you know, but so I tend not to notice latency very much down in the 16 to 20 millisecond range. But I will say, flying the Beta FPV P1 system, which has higher latency, I notice when we're up in that range, when we're ranging, and I don't know what the numbers are, but just based on my experience with where I notice latency, I think that latency below about 30 milliseconds, I kind of mostly don't notice. And then somewhere between 30 and 60 milliseconds, it starts to come in, and I'm like, ooh, I can feel that. I was fine as long as I was flying in relatively open areas at lower speeds. And then there was a threshold where I picked up the speed. And like if I did a power loop, and at the end of the power loop, whoop, I have to dive into the gap. Oh, suddenly, I couldn't do it. Or I hit the gap, but then I was kind of out of control and I couldn't recover. There was a threshold of speed and proximity where when I crossed that threshold, suddenly the latency mattered. And if I had never crossed that threshold, I would have said, oh, the latency's fine. But then the minute I crossed that threshold, I suddenly felt out of control. And from my experience, I was like, this is not just me being a bad pilot. I know that I should be able to do this. It must be the latency. And I would argue that you know, racers and people with more twitch reflexes flying faster in tighter environments hit that threshold at a lower latency. Someone asked in the chat, can you really feel 20 milliseconds of latency? Yes, 1,000 times yes. It is empirically demonstrable. There are apps out there. I did this on a live stream once. I'm not going to do it again. There are apps out there that use a technique to detect what latency threshold you can actually notice and what you can't. And people can notice as low as just 1 or 2 milliseconds of latency difference. Okay? So like, however much latency there is, I'm going to give you 1 millisecond or 2 milliseconds more, 1 millisecond or 2 milliseconds less. Can you tell the difference? Yes, absolutely demonstrably. And the mistake people make is that they compare it to human reaction time, which is typically in the 100 to 250 millisecond range. Suffice it to say, again, without rehashing all this stuff that we've talked about on previous streams, that there's a difference between reaction time and detection of latency. Think about audio. If my audio is out of sync with my mouth by as little as, well, it's a larger number, but you can absolutely tell. Anyway, go ahead, Blunty. You were going to say something.
I was also going to remind people that, like, you have to remember that the eye isn't just one thing, right? It's not doing one job, which is seeing things, and then you see them, right? Like, you have peripheral vision, you have direct vision, you have, like, detection of color changes by, like, the rods and cones in the backs of your eyes, right? There's all these different things that fire at different rates in the back of your eyes and in your brain. And so when they do testing, like, I think the highest technical frame rate you could see is, like, 36,000, because, like, depending on where it's at in your vision and how the colors change and how the scene changes, like, your brain actually sees that change that fast. But depending on on what's changing and if you're measuring reaction, if you're measuring movement, like all these kind of things, it's going to be variable based on that. That's all I would say. So
it's not controversial at all that your eye can tell the difference between 60 hertz, 120 hertz, and 240 hertz. Like if you game, you know that for a fact, but even just moving your mouse around on screen, you can see the difference in smoothness between those. And those are, milliseconds of difference. So anyway, put that to bed. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Two more things I'll say. One is Matt's Tech mentions something that video game people are just getting into now, which is frame delivery consistency. Mm-hmm. It's really like we've always looked at what frame rate you get like on a game, but the question is like, when is the frame rendered versus when you see it and stuff? Like when's the frame drawn versus when you get it, and how is the frame delivered at the same time, like at each update, right? So you're getting it's not within a window, right, that you're getting it. So like in testing, it seems like people can notice that, and there's new technologies that are kind of working. There's a new version of G-Sync that's going to work on like fixing this for smoothness. But it can be super important, and it's one of the things you don't think about. And that leads in the other point I want to mention, which is just remember that when we're talking about all this, we're generally talking about like analog latency, because digital latency has an additional step, which is the compression and the retransmits and the blocks that get set on your screen. And you're also doing full frame or half frame, right? So it's sort of a different way that it's processing the signal, and the latency can be variable. With analog, you're going to get basically the same latency all the time. But with digital, you may go in a range of 5 to 10 milliseconds, and you may be lower than the analog latency, but the lack of consistency could cause 2 or 3 feet of difference depending on the speed you're going, right, at that 5 or 10 milliseconds. So it's just something to consider that, like, there's all these variables, and it's not just like the number's lower. So many things to consider.
Yeah. At what number does latency become noticeable for acro flying? Asks Cool Cat. Way before 150 milliseconds. Like Twitch racers would say that latency somewhere above 16 to 20 milliseconds starts to become noticeable. Niels Vo, for example, is saying 30 milliseconds feels like garbage. I would say I mean, if you fly DJI, you fly 30 milliseconds all the time or higher, and people do amazing things on DJI, so it's certainly possible. For me, somewhere between 60 and 100 milliseconds, I'm like, this is garbage. What the hell is going on here? But if all I'm doing is take off, fly up into the air, fly around the field, and land again, I can do that at 100 to 150 milliseconds. And again, I probably will notice it, but like it is doable. Like I've flown fixed wings at 100 plus milliseconds and thought, I could do this. But if I had to do any proxy or proxy stuff, then it would be much more difficult. Continuing with the super chats, Italy Sharoni, thank you for 30. I can't remember what that symbol is. Thank you for 30 of them, though. Goggle X plus Walksnail Avatar HD race mode. My goggles menu shows up to channel 15. What are channel 9 through 15 and their analog overlaps? So I don't know what those channels are. What I believe they're doing is they're giving you the standard race band channels and then an offset if you want to like just space in between for some reason. I don't know why you would want to do that, but suffice it to say, like, I don't think they've like discovered some new frequencies. The only way to know, they don't show, so I haven't seen that. I haven't used a ton of Walksnail, and certainly not in race mode recently, so that's in a new firmware update, I guess, that I don't have. But one thing you could do is if you had an analog module, you could just see the peak in the signal, and you could see what frequency they're at. Or don't they normally show the frequency on screen? I guess not, or you wouldn't be asking. But I don't know the answer. I think that what they're doing is, because the Beta FPV P1 system does this. In race mode, there's 16 channels. It's just the standard 8 channels, and then the standard 8 channels offset by a half a channel to give you more ability to avoid interference. Elias Derkula, thank you for €5. What's your opinion on designing a frame for personal use and stealing the design features from other frames? Is it a good idea? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. As soon as you start selling it, I think you're in a more questionable ethical area, right? And let's just leave that aside for now. That's a You didn't ask that question, and that's a hot button topic. But if you're just designing something for your personal use, like, absolutely just go steal everything you can, because, like, everyone who became a luminary at the top of their field started as an amateur learning from the best. I wish I were more of an expert on painters, on classical painters. I've heard people say this, but I don't know the names of the painters. I don't know them well enough. But they said, you know, if you look at this famous master painter, they started by doing sketches of the master painters of the generation before. Everyone learns by studying the work of the people who came before them. And so if you're designing frames and you look at a frame that you like and you're like, ooh, I dig it, and you quote unquote steal the features and put them together, that's just how you learn. As soon as you put it out there for sale, I think it's a little bit of a different situation and you have to think about the ethics. But for personal use, frankly, I wouldn't care if you literally cloned an existing frame and cut your own copies for personal use. Oh, but you're taking sales away from the designer of the frame. That's okay. For how many people, if you're going to go to the work of designing a clone of a frame, sketching it up in CAD, and then cutting it on a CNC mill, go for it. You earned it. How many sales are you really taking away? Right? That's what my opinion would be. Thank you for a €10 question from QRCK asking about the Skyzone 04X Pros. Frankly, a latency of 20 milliseconds I wouldn't even be mad about. Although analog goggles are usually lower. I think we've talked about that more than enough. George Petit Maridis, thank you for €2. Any opinion on the Skyzone Cobra X V4? Hey, Niels Vo, are you still here? How was the latency of the Cobra goggles? Did you test those? Do they have the same problem? In general, I think the Skyzone Cobra X is a good analog. If you're okay with a box goggle, it's a good analog. It's one of the best performing box goggles because it actually has a module bay and a good module. But then again, if the latency is crap, maybe it's not worth it. All right. Well, we're caught up on Super Chats. And we have 17 questions in the queue. Let's see what else we got. Here's one from Gangrene OW. Gain. Gangrene, not like the kind of thing you get when you get an infection. I just purchased the HDZero Goggle 2 recently, and this is my first go in analog. Since receiving them, I get such bad reception, even just doing Ray Scout indoors at 25 milliwatts. 50 milliwatt works wonderful. Am I doing something wrong, or should I just not worry about it and stay on 50 milliwatts? I mean, if 50 milliwatts works, stay on 50 milliwatts. I will say, in my opinion, the best way to set the goggles up. Ooh, I got my overhead camera. Hang on. Gotta love it. The best way to set them up is to have, so with the HDZero V2 goggles, this antenna is the only one that is used for analog reception. There is no diversity. And so I like to put my directional antenna up there. Usually you would put an omni antenna up there. I like to put my directional antenna up there because I think that that's what's going to give me the best reception in the widest variety of cases. Okay? And I get fantastic range basically all the time. I can't tell you. And like, I thought, I'm so confident about this. And normally I would say, oh, well, you know, is it just me? Is it just placebo effect? I cannot tell you how many times I have been flying with other people and they have rapid fire, fusion, Skyzone. More Skyzone than rapid fire and fusion. And they're like, oh, my video's getting bad. And I'm like, looks good to me. That happens. I've never had a situation where I've been like, damn, how are you flying? You know that situation where you're spectating and you're like, how are you flying right now? And the pilot is like, what do you mean? My video is fine. And you're like, oh shit, you're over there, and you have to turn your head. I've never had a situation where I've been like, your video is really bad, and the pilot is like, I'm fine. And I'm like, oh, it must be me. I regularly have a situation where the pilot's like, ooh, video's shitty. And I'm like, what do you mean it looks fine? My video always seems to be better than people flying other systems. And so, like, I've come to the conclusion that this setup is certainly no worse than rapid fire or fusion, and in a lot of cases is better. That's my experience. And I try not to be too emphatic, unless, sorry about that, I don't know what that was. I try not to be too emphatic about saying things like that, because people go buy these goggles based on my recommendation. And to say that you don't need diversity is controversial, because, like, diversity is better, right? We want diversity. I don't feel like we need diversity. Diversity was a big mistake. Diversity was a big mistake. All this time, we should have just been focused on making one really good receiver. You add diversity, and now you've got flashing white lines as diversity switches. Oh, the flashing white lines are terrible. I know. Let's add a fusion algorithm to get rid of the white lines. Except now we've got sync lock problems, and we've got mix mode, mix 1, mix 2, mix 3, and sometimes the screen just turns black and scrolls horizontally. What if we just got rid of all that crap and just made one really good receiver? Wait, but more technology's better. No! Return to MONKE! Reject modernity! Return to MONKE! Diversity was a freaking evolutionary dead end the whole time. Just one really good analog receiver is all you need. I'm joking, but I'm not. I was so skeptical when I first got these, and I have continually been proven to be right. Now, there's one catch. The catch is that if you are used to having these on your head and you're just staring at the ground and you're relying on the fact that you've got an Omni that's diversity, right? You gotta engage your brain. You must be smart, monkey. You have to, when you have these goggles on your head and you only have this antenna and your video's getting shitty, you have to go, oh, hold on a second. Oh, I'm good now. You have to swivel your head to face the drone. That's not a big deal. You know where the drone is. Just swivel your head to face the drone, screw diversity, and just have one good, and it's all you need. HDZero V2 goggles. Best analog goggle you can get today. By God, I hope Niels Vo doesn't test the latency and be like, the latency is shit. I would be shocked if that happened. Number one, because I fly these as my daily driver, and although I'm not very latency sensitive, I haven't noticed it. And number two, because HDZero, like, their whole thing is optimizing their pipeline for low latency, so you would think they wouldn't screw that up. But, oh good. HDZero was tested. It was good. Whew! Anyway. Okay. Homer says, hey Josh, I just bought a Flywoo Wide Pro. Do you know if they'll actually rebrand the real Pro unit? Yeah, so there's a problem with Flywoo's Flywoo's doing something, I don't know if I'd call it sketchy. It might be an accident. But this right here, the Flywoo 04 Wide Air Unit 155 Pro, this is not an 04 Pro. This is an 04 Lite with a heatsink on it. People are buying this thinking it's the O4 Pro, and they're like, damn, the O4 Pro usually costs $220, or probably more nowadays. I haven't looked recently. I can't bear. I'm getting a great price. This is the O4 Lite with the Flywoo O4 Wide. So what exactly is Pro about this? They need to take Pro out of this name because it's misleading. But yeah, you should know what you're getting. I mean, if you look, it's easy to overlook. But if you look, you'll see that's not the O4 Pro. But with the heatsink on it, it kind of looks like it is. So, bummer. Don't do that. Don't fall for that, guys. Don't fall for that. Are digital goggles backwards compatible to analog? Depends on the goggle. HDZero Goggles support analog input via various means. Goggles X, Walksnail Goggles X support analog input. DJI goggles do not. I have the DJI Goggles 3 and I want to build an analog drone. You do need to buy analog goggles. DJI Goggles 3 don't support analog in any way, shape, or form. Vilks asks, my propeller cut into my XT60 connector. Now the wires are exposed and half of them are cut. Can I cover everything with heat shrink and let it be? The problem is that you've reduced the diameter of the wire, so it is now effectively a smaller gauge wire. You will have more heat buildup. I would say if you chopped literally half the wires, I would repair that. I would not just tape over it. I mean, like if you're just trying to stay in the air for the rest of the day, sure, just slap some electrical tape on it and send it. But that's not a permanent fix. I've had drones where I chopped some of the wire and was like, I'm probably okay, and I just put some tape on it or heat shrink and let it go. The thing is, you're going to have to desolder the damn thing to put heat shrink on it anyway, right? I don't know, maybe you put heat shrink over the whole thing. I would repair that if literally half the wire is chopped. Let's see here. Oof. Brand new motors have a slight metallic sound. There's no grinding or physical rubbing. Messed with a few preset tunes and frequency cutoffs. No success, doesn't matter. I mean, I wouldn't like that. That would bother me. But if they all did it and they didn't seem hot or rubbing, then I might just be like, I guess that's how they are.
Yeah, the primary thing, I'll just be very clear. The thing you want to check is heat primarily. Mm-hmm. Because if the metallic sound is from friction of the bearing or anything, right, you're going to build heat way faster than normal. I think the main thing to watch is like, do you have heat buildup?
Yep. Okay, good point. The other thing you could try changing is the PWM frequency in the ESC settings. Sometimes that will have an effect. I wouldn't like that, though. Does Betaflight have an app for the newest update, or do I always have to open the web browser? Blunty, have we covered this on live streams before? It seems like we must have.
Yes.
Do we have a live stream clip about this?
Maybe, I think so. It's been a minute since we've done it, but I think so.
So if you check out the Joshua Bardwell live stream clips channel, you could infer from the title what that is. Let's see. Nope. That's not going to be it. I don't see it, Plenty. Okay, here's the live stream clip. Does Betaflight have an app for the newest update, or do I always have to open the web browser? This is a question I have been getting a lot since the new version of Betaflight came out. People go to Betaflight Configurator, and they go to the releases page, and they look for the download, and it's not there. They're like, what happened? Betaflight Configurator is now only available as a progressive web app. It is at app.betaflight.com. Now, you can download it and install it to your hard drive. You're like, well, I want to run it offline. Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. I've already done that. That's why it's not opening in a browser. What you do is Can I just go there? app.betaflight.com in my browser? Yeah. If you do that in your browser, you should see here in the upper right an option to save as an app. Or in Chrome, there's an option down here, cast, save, and share. And right here, again, I've already done this, so it says open. But save as app. So you can save this as an app. That's how you install it. Or you just open your browser and go to app.betaflight.com. That is it. It is now a progressive web app. Why did they do that? I hate that they did that. There's a reason why they did it. It has to do with development. It has to do with the way they were releasing it. It was a development decision. They made it. You could argue about that on the Discord if you want, the Betaflight Discord. But that's just the way it is right now. So that's how you don't download an installer anymore. You just do the web app. And you install the web app to your local hard drive if you want to. That is it. It's also an official Betaflight APK that you can run on your phone. I should download and install that. I'm going to do that. I'm running the SpeedyBee app right now, but I'd rather run the official Betaflight app. I'm going to try that out. All right. Well, hopefully that's helpful for people. Rowdy Rascal says, sorry about the keyboard comments. I listen to these at work through my hearing aids and the clacks pierce me. I'm sorry about your piercing keyboard, or my piercing keyboard. I have had situations where the audio engineering on a live stream or podcast drives me crazy. I've had some where the equalization was particularly bad and jarring for me. My personal complaint is there's a podcast I listen to where the guys will sometimes respond to recorded court depositions. They'll play the audio from the deposition, and then they'll pause the deposition and they'll talk over it. Or they'll play an audio show, and they will. For those who listen to podcasts, it's Knowledge Fight, if you know that one. So they'll play the radio show and then they'll pause it and respond to it. And my pet peeve is that they don't normalize the audio of the recorded section to their audio. Their audio is well normalized. Their volume levels are fine, but then the recorded audio is quieter. And so I'm constantly having to ride my own volume or not be able to hear what they're saying. And I'm like, guys, I can show you how to fix this in it's so easy to fix. Or, your live stream is popular enough right now, you could hire an audio engineer to fix this. But, it's so frustrating when the audio is effed up on something you're listening to and it's driving you crazy. I'm not going to change my keyboard. I'm sorry that it bothers you. I'm sorry. I empathize with your experience. I'm not changing my keyboard. I like my keyboard. I already got rid of my keyboard with blue switches, which are extra clacky, which I loved. I got rid of it because of the live stream but this is the compromise. And all I can say is maybe there's some equalization app you can get for your end. Get an EQ, get something that plays back with EQ and turn down the high end to take that out, or maybe you could run it through some kind of AI background noise remover. I'm sorry to put the work on you, but I'm not going to change my keyboard, and I'm not going to change my mic setup. Don't put the shotgun mic down at the keyboard, but up. Where's the mic going to be? Where am I going to? I mean, I'm open to options, but where's the mic going to be? Is it going to be down here? That's silly. Is it going to be down here in front of me? No. The mic goes here. That's where the mic goes. I used to have a mic in camera, but I decided to move away from that. So, I'm sorry. It just is what it is. You're the outlier. I apologize. I sympathize. I don't want to sound insensitive. But ultimately, there's this thing that happens on the internet. I forget the name of someone named this phenomena, but someone will post a recipe. The example that was given is they post a recipe for how to make beans, a bean recipe. And then someone will reply to it and say, yeah, but I don't really like beans. Like, okay, it's not for you. Like, everybody on the internet kind of walks around with the assumption that all content on the internet must be tailored for them. And then if anything is like wrong, that must be a problem. And it's like, in this case, you're the outlier. And you just got to figure out how to solve it on your end. Because I'm not going to solve it on my end. Sorry.
Yeah, one thing I like to tell people in messages to me who tell me how to do things is like, I'm not for everybody, man. Like, I'm literally can't be for everybody. It's impossible.
Yeah.
When you change everything for everybody, you're either nothing or everybody hates you still. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not how it works. Yeah. Like, you're here because I do the things I do and you do the things you do, you know?
And like, there's times when I say that and I'm like, yeah, but fuck that guy, right? This is not one of those times. Like, if somebody says to me, you dress like a fag, and that's harsh language, but I get that comment occasionally. I'll have some kind of colorful piece of clothing on and I'll be like, is this guy gay? First of all, I immediately just ban that guy so I never see a comment from him again because I don't need that in my life. But like, I'm like, hey, I'm not for everybody, but fuck that guy. In this case, it's just like, I judge that the sound of the keyboard is not sufficiently, like, the blue keys were annoying to everyone and I got rid of it. But the browns, I don't think it's that big a deal. So like, I'm just gonna say, sorry, I'm not, you know, this is where I draw the line. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Now everyone's chiming in and saying the keyboard is annoying. Tough shit.
We've had quite a few people say they like the keyboard and they don't understand the problem. So.
Yeah. I used to know a guy who was hyper reactive if he heard any chewing or smacking noises. And I'm not talking about like, well, I'm not going to make noises because I know they trigger people. But I'm not talking about like over the top. Like, literally, if he heard you eating at all, it was like nails on a chalkboard to him. And I think he was sincere. I think some people are more sensitive to some of those things than others. Anyway. Moving on. Getting back to the topic. Thank you, Henry Ruble, for $5. I just bought the DJI Goggles N3. Was it a bad idea due to the DJI ban? What should be the first quad I buy for ripping and all around? I mean, you bought them. You're probably going to be okay. You're probably going to find ways to get DJI gear into the US despite the fact that there's a ban. Bear in mind that all existing DJI gear is still fine to import and will probably remain so for the foreseeable future. It's only the next generation of gear that doesn't yet have FCC approval. That's the stuff you're going to have a little bit of a harder time getting. So you're probably fine. What's a good sub 3-inch? Well, you know, don't want to sound like a broken record, but I like the Flywoo for sub 3-inch. I'm sorry. Go film? Yeah. I'm sorry. A fly lens. There we go. Hello, fly lens, 85, please. I like the fly lens 85 as a good sub 3-inch DJI drone. I think it flies okay. If you get it with the Lite, I would buy this with the Lite air unit and the wide adapter. I think that's the sweet spot in terms of weight and image quality and field of view. So don't buy this exact one, but get the fly lens 85 with the 04 Lite and the wide adapter, which I guarantee you they sell. I guarantee you they sell it. Flylens 85 HD 03 Lite, Flylens 85 HD 04 wide. I think that would be this one. HD 04 wide. Is it the Lite? Yeah, this is the one. Flylens 85 HD 04 wide. Wait, is that the new wide adapter or the old one? I don't. No, I think that's the right one. Yeah. Anyway, that's a good choice. It's a good price, too. It hurts to say that's a good price, but there you go. Thank you for $2 from Color1238. DJI will fix your crap image in my experience. Okay, probably. What alternative analog goggles in the 040 Pro's price range? There aren't any. That's why we recommend the 040 Pro. There just aren't any. Everything else is either a box goggle, which many people don't want, or it's $500, $600. So like you could look at the HDZero box goggle, very good goggle, good analog receiver, box goggle though. Or if you want a binocular style goggle, you're going up to the $500+ price range. That's it. That's why the 040 Pro is so compelling. Thank you for $10 from Color1238. I'm looking at the TX16S Mark III, and I'm coming from a Tango 2 Pro. How big are they side by side, and how are the ergonomics of the TX16S? Well, funny enough, guess what? Lucky me, lucky you. I can show you because I have them. Here they are, side by side. I find the jug to be unsightly. I'll drink from it on camera, but I don't want it just sitting there. So here is the TX16S Mark II, Mark III, whatever it is. Here's the Tango 2. So you can just see for yourself how they stack up size-wise. The width is about the same, which is actually a good thing because that's a good width, for your hands. I like that the Tango 2, the ergonomics are I like that the part that your hand interfaces with is relatively flat. It feels like you're holding a bigger controller than you are in terms of the way it sort of fits your hand. TBS really nailed the design on this one. Right? Thickness, similar, pretty similar. I wouldn't expect it to be super thin. Main difference is in the height, right? It's a little thinner. Oh, the handle's in the way. That's the problem. Yeah, the thickness is about the same. It's just way smaller when you fold it down in terms of ability to just stuff it into a backpack or something. So, the Tango 2 has some of the best ergonomics of any of the gamepad style controllers. You have to really fly them for a while before you appreciate it. They didn't try to make it look like an Xbox or PlayStation controller, which obviously Xbox and PlayStation controllers also have very good ergonomics. Like Sony and Microsoft don't slouch when it comes to the ergonomics, but I don't know. I think especially when you add the longer sticks, like the game controllers are designed to be used with thumb sticks. These are more designed, they're longer sticks. I don't know. The ergonomics are very good on the Tango 2. Main downside of the Tango 2 is the lack of switches. There just aren't as many. There's some, but you easily run out of switches when you start doing more complicated stuff. Ergonomics on the TX16S, it's huge. I would definitely want to use this with a lanyard. Obviously you could hold it in your hands, but I would want to be more sort of just floating over it, and ability to kind of dance around as I needed. If I had to wrap my hands around it and hold it, it would be usable, but just a little bit more constraining, I would say. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question. Oh, and Tango 2. Oh, sorry, wrong scene. Hopefully, Tango 2 also Crossfire only. I mean, you can put an external module adapter on it, but most people, if you're not running Crossfire, I think that's a major point against the Tango 2. Maybe the Tango 3 will fix that whenever it comes out. Explosive Labs, thank you for 5 Canadian. What do you think about the Sequre Rison 5 Bind and Fly 8S? I heard you say stop building 8S 5 inches, but what about Bind and Fly? Yeah, I have flown the Sequre Bind and Fly 8S and it was decent. It wasn't the Rison 5, I don't think. It was the previous one. But oh, look at that. It's a racing drone. La-di-da. Fancy. That looks a lot like a switchback. Looks a lot like a... It's even in... Okay. Now, I know that no one person can own a color, but I can't help but notice that that is Evan Turner's signature color. I can't help but notice that that is clearly exactly Evan Turner's signature color. Is this some kind of made in partnership with?
I think it's just TPU from SaneSmart, right? That looks like the blue from SaneSmart.
Yes, okay.
I mean, half my drones are that blue because that's the roll I bought.
All I'm saying is it would be really easy to confuse this with a 533 branded product, and I can't help but think that Sequre knows that and is banking on that. And they haven't done anything wrong exactly, but it does, like, I don't know, maybe they just spontaneously picked that color blue. Again, it's not a trademarked color like Hamlindigo blue. Oh, Better Call Saul reference. Decades out of date. Oh, it's not a trademark color, obviously, but I just anyway. Sure, why not? I had good results with my Sequre 8S Bind and Fly. It was fine. Again, 8S is a novelty. It's a fun novelty, and I didn't blow the ESC on it yet. It's been a while, so sure, why not? I wouldn't steer you away from that.
I think AM32 and Sequre are pretty tight. Like, I think they're like, they talk like they're good with their hardware and they like at least keep up with knowing what it is. So I think you have a better chance on 8S with the Sequre ESC. Yep.
I've heard that too. Probably from the same place as you, so don't give any credit to it. Beetle Bass, thank you for $10. Hey JB, I bought a Hummingbird V4. I saw the Walksnail Avatar HD Mini 1S Lite kit. It appears you can solder it to the all-in-one MCU, a flight controller on the HBV4. Can I make an HD Tiny Whoop for $190, or am I not thinking of something? I mean, I wouldn't put the Avatar HD, maybe the Avatar, maybe it'd be okay.
It's going to be heavy.
It's going to be heavy. The Avatar HD Mini it's like 10 grams, 11 grams, if I remember right.
Also, just as an aside, you will need to find a way to disable the analog video.
Yeah, because you don't want that video transmitter cranking away in your ear.
Yeah, and that likely means you'll need to figure out like where the analog is on it and disable it, unless there's some kind of like 0 ohm resistor.
Yeah. What am I doing? Where's my other window? No, where's my other window? Where did it go? Where'd it go? Oh, right there. There we go. Happy Lunar New Year. So, let's see. Can we disable the VTX? I mean, the simplest thing to do is to set it to max and then take the antenna off until it burns itself out. That is an option. You could intentionally short the antenna connector and it'll burn itself out. I would not be surprised to find out that Newbie Drone gave you a way to disable the VTX internally. Could you set it to pit mode? I don't know about that. I would ask Newbie Drone. Tell them you want to make a digital version and you want to know how to disable the onboard VTX. And they will probably have an intelligent answer for you. Either something to desolder like a resistor you can desolder that powers it down, or a trace you can cut, or maybe a software way you can turn it off. Yeah, anyway, you will need to do that. I don't think you're going to... I don't think I would recommend this, though. So, what's the weight on this kit? 8 grams. So you're going to add 8 grams to, what's the Hummingbird weigh? So it's 19 grams. You're going to swap the camera, and that's more or less going to be a 1-for-1. You're going to add like 5 grams, let's say. So you're going to go from 20 grams to 25 grams. 25 grams is not an unacceptable weight for a 65 millimeter whoop class drone. Most people would say that it's better in the 20 to 22 gram range, and it's even better at 19 grams, and it's even better at 16 or 17 grams, and those people are right. But at 25 grams, it's not going to be a total piece of crap. So you got to figure out how to disable the video transmitter. And I don't think it's like, if that's what you want to do, I think you should do it on a 75 millimeter would be a better idea. And keep your nice newbie drone Hummingbird. It's perfectly good. Get a 75 millimeter and swap that one would be my actual recommendation. Dejan Comedic asks, my H743 dual drone has gaps in blackbox and a data rate difference warning. 8K PID, 2K log. Is dual gyro fusion overloading the CPU, or is it just SD card speed? I don't know what flight controller you have. I think it's your SD card speed. Yeah. Yeah. If you have gaps in your black box, it's probably your SD card speed. Is dual gyro... It's an H743, so it's definitely fast enough to run 8K PID loop and logging. Go ahead, Blenty.
I'll just say that if you need to, for troubleshooting purposes, just know that if you go in the black box tab, you can individually disable certain elements, which makes, may fix the fact that the data rate is too high for whatever issue you have. So let's say you find the SD card you have, can only go a quarter of the data rate you need. You could just disable a bunch of the things, and it's possible that that would work, depending on if it's a bandwidth issue or an actual rate issue.
I'm surprised that any modern SD card can't run at 2K PID loop.
Well, there's a bunch of fake SD cards on Amazon.
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, that wasn't specifically what I was getting at, but I was like, I think something's wrong with your SD card, my friend.
I've seen fake SD cards twice, and it's been years since I've but I've only seen it twice with a user like trying to use one, but they do happen. So
just because we described something, oh my god, where's my Betaflight flight controller? Ooh, that one is not Betaflight. I'm guessing it's iNav. Let's try this one. Okay, there we go. So here in the black box tab, we have the option to turn off these individual fields. Debug mode. Well, wait, debug mode is off. So yeah, no, this, let me zoom in. So you could turn off any of these that you're not using, right? And that'll reduce the data rate some. Like if you just want stick outputs, or if you just are like, maybe you're not concerned with motor RPM or motor output. I don't know. You're just looking at PIDs, right? So you could turn turn accelerometer off because you don't care about that. You probably want gyro, RSSI, altitude, mag, battery. You probably want set point, RC command, PID, gyro. These are things you would want for like the minimum of PID tuning, and that's going to cut down on some of that data. But you should be able to log at 2K, no problem. So, like, I think your SD card is screwed up, is what I would say. Vachko Markovich, thank you for 250 RSD. I have a 2S 2-inch cinewhoop with 1103, 11,000 kV motors. Total weight's 135 grams. Can it carry a Runcam Thumb 2? Yes. Yep. Next. I think it can. Runcam Thumb 2 doesn't weigh that much. Ooh, you nailed it! Metallic noise in motors is gone after adjusting PWM frequency from 24 to 48. Whoop, whoop! Yeah! I love being right. I love solving problems. It's fantastic. And by the way, sometimes it's not like taking it from 24 to 48 is always right. There's an interaction sometimes between the motors and the ESC, and you just take it from whatever it's at to something else and see if it goes away. It's not like always, like a lot of times higher is going to be better, but not always. So don't over extrapolate. Problem Prone. Thank you for a $10 super chat. I am about to get my Part 107 for work as member of our SWAT team. I own a large amount of quads and fly for hobby. My area isn't heavily enforced, but advice for protecting myself when flying for fun. You're Problem Prone. You're in a bad situation, which is if somebody is a hobbyist and they get in trouble, they may get fined, which is bad, but they're not going to lose their job. If somebody flies professionally, and especially now, and by the way, if you didn't watch the very beginning of the stream, we spent like 20 minutes, probably more, at the beginning of the stream talking about the new FAA enforcement guidelines. You need to go watch that, because long story short, the stakes are higher now than they have been. If you get caught, the official directive to the FAA is that they're going to yank your 107. And you're going to get fined and referred to the Office of the Inspector General for investigation or prosecution. So the stakes are higher. And the stakes are higher for hobbyists. That's the point of the first 20 minutes of this live stream. But also the stakes are higher if you're a professional. The official advice, and you're a cop, so you understand this advice. If somebody said to you, hey, you're a cop, I'm thinking about doing something that's legally sketchy. What's your advice? Your official advice would be, don't break the law. Ever. Right? But if it's one of your bros and you're out having a few beers and he's like, hey man, what if I wanted, like, you know that there's gray areas and you can, sometimes people decide to play in the gray areas. I would say that the official advice is you need to follow all FAA regulations all the time. Because if you get caught in one of those gray areas, number one, the official policy of the FAA now is to bring the hammer down hard on violators. Will that happen to you? Maybe not, but that's a big chance to take. And then, yeah. Certainly, you need to be aware that anytime you decide to operate in one of those gray areas, where maybe you're not strictly following all the rules, like you just are flying FPV and you don't have a spotter right now, but you're in the middle of nowhere, so who's going to know? Who cares? No one cares. Anytime you decide to operate in that zone, you need to do it on like as down low as possible and make sure nobody ever freaking knows. So that's like my real advice is follow all the rules. You can't afford to lose your license and then have your job be affected. If they pull your 107, not only can you know, well, like if they pull your 107, if anybody else on your team has a 107, then like Bob's my pilot in command, Bob's my PIC, I'm good to go. Okay, you could always try and like get around that. But like it's just not good if you had the FAA action against you and they pulled your 107. That's just not going to look good on your record. You know, that's what I would say. Yep, that's how it is. Best advice for protecting yourself when flying for fun is follow all the rules all the time. And or don't let anyone know that you didn't follow them. Like there's no like loopholes here. You either, yeah. It's not like there's some like tricky legal loophole that you can get around. The rules are so restrictive. that almost any hobbyist doing the kind of things that hobbyists have done for a decade or more is going to be breaking the rules. So you either get in line or you accept that you're a rule breaker and you just hope that you get away with it. Thank you for $5 from Simply Electronics Official. I owned an Avatar VTX V2 for about a week and it died. I found the voltage regulator blew, replaced it, it works again. Yeah. So the Avatar GT is okay. But all of the other Avatar VTXs, in my humble opinion, the voltage regulator is flawed. Maybe the Lite and the Micro, the 1S ones are okay. But the bigger VTXs that are supposed to run on 6S, they blow on 6S in my experience. And again, this is data that I've gotten not just from anecdotal experience, but from people who like run training programs and other large programs that are going through tens or hundreds of these a year. So it's not statistically significant, but it's more statistically significant than, yeah, I heard a story. One guy told me this. It's one guy with 100 units told me this, which is still not exactly data, but it's more data-like. The Avatar VTXs, I always run them on a regulator. I don't trust their voltage regulator. They blow really easily. So run them off 9 volts or 10 volts. They say they're rated for 6S. It's just, in my opinion, it's just not true. Somewhere out there's a guy and he's like, mine are fine. I don't know what you're talking about. Good for you. But it sucks when they blow. Glad you were able to replace it. And I don't know why Walksnail doesn't fix this. It's been an issue for a long time. Ooh. Blunty, I feel like the live stream is just... I feel like maybe it's just me. You know what it is? I know what it is. I feel like I'm cooking today, Blunty. And I know what it is. I just realized. So me and my son... My son is... he's 14, almost 15, for your perspective. So he's not a young pup. He's a kid, but he's not a young pup. We're playing this video game. It's called Library of Ruina. It's from a Korean developer. He loves this freaking game. So I'm playing it with him. And one of the characters in this video game he loves fine coffee. And he offers the main character a cup of coffee. And apparently coffee is not as much of a sort of a delicacy in Korea as it is here, because the character is like, oh, you know, I've drank coffee, just like black coffee when I need to stay awake. This guy's like, no, this is a delicacy. Try it. And of course he hates it, because if you don't have a taste for like fine black coffee, you're not going to like it. And then in another scene, the character makes him like a macchiato. It's like a sweet, and I like it. And they become friends around this. And my son is like, you know, you're like that. You drink coffee. I'm like, yep. I was like, maybe someday I'll make you a cup of coffee. I was like, you know what? Hey, you're almost 15. You know, you're not. When he was younger, we didn't give him any caffeine at all. Well, you know, he'll have a Coke now and then. I was like, you know what? You want to try a coffee? I'll make you a coffee tomorrow morning. You can try it. You can see what you think. This is just like when your parents like, yeah, you want to puff off this cigar? Go ahead, kid. Ha ha. No, I wasn't like malicious. I didn't expect him to like it. He was like, okay, Dad, I'll take you up on it. So he comes down this morning. I've had my cup of coffee. He comes down. He's like, you want to make me a cup? So I was like, here, try a taste of mine before. And mine is black coffee with cream, no sugar. And I give him a little spoon and he takes a little sip and he goes, that is not what I expected it to taste like. That is really bitter. He doesn't like it at all. And I'm like, yeah, now you know. Now you know why Roland reacted the way he did when he first tasted it. And I was like, I'll tell you what, though. I'll make you one. I'll make you a cup. I'll put cream and sugar in it. It'll sweeten it up, and you won't taste the bitterness quite as much. I made it for him. He sipped it. He also didn't want it. And then I had a second cup. I had a second cup of coffee this morning. I'm extra caffeinated. That's why the live stream just feels like it's cooking along to me. I don't know, Blunty. What do you think? You notice a difference? Am I extra energetic today?
Seems pretty normal to me. I would
Okay.
say.
Seems like time is flying. It's now 10 minutes to the end of the live stream. And I feel like I just got here. Anyway. It was great. He sipped it, and he was like, that is not what I expected it to taste like. I don't know what he expected it to taste like. It was so cool to get to watch. It's one of the coolest things about parenting is getting to watch another human being have those first in their life experiences that you take for granted. And of course, that happens to kids all the time because they've never done anything before. And then slowly they have these first in their lifetime experiences. The first time he tasted coffee, it was such a cool reaction. I don't know. Anyway, little pinch of salt in the coffee cuts the bitterness. I've heard that, you know. And my wife said, yeah, coffee is one of those things that adults convince themselves are good because, like, oh, what was her exact wording? Because they've just sort of like, I'm going to mess up her exact wording. That's a shame. They've just like, lost all the joy in life and they have to lie to themselves that these experiences like drinking horrible tasting bitter coffee. No, you just don't have the taste for it. It's like, that's all we've got. Like we've lost all of the joy of life and we just have to do horrible things to ourselves. Like, and I was like, yeah, well, you smoke. Smoking is like you're just like coughing and choking and gagging and she's like, oh yeah, no, it's the same. Yeah. Anyway. There you go. Thank you, Hitch FPV, for 10 Swiss francs. I thought it would taste like coffee ice cream, says DC. Yeah, okay. Was it Costco?
Did you know?
Brand? Yeah.
Did you know if you go to New Zealand and you order an iced coffee, they give you a coffee with ice cream in it?
No, but I mean, there's an Italian.
I just thought that was very surprising.
Is it
like apparently whatever place you're in, iced coffee can be different. Because it could be a black coffee with ice in it. It could be milk coffee with ice in it. It could be coffee with ice cream in it. Like in New Zealand, you have to order an iced latte if you want coffee with ice in it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but just like, and you know this, I'm sure, Blunty. Iced coffee is not just. Well, there's iced coffee, and then there's cold brew. That's okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not the same thing. Kind of like the difference between cold iced tea and sweet tea. Very distinct. What you reminded me of is affogato, which is an Italian name for affogato. Probably I should say the T is a T, not a D. I shouldn't flap the T because I don't think Italians do that. Affogato. Okay, I have to make Fabio proud. Affogato is espresso over ice cream, or ice cream espresso with ice cream in it. So, if you're out and all your friends have espresso, a shot of espresso after their meal, like true European continentalists, and you're like, can I get some ice cream in that? And they're like, what a heathen. You'd be like, no, it's affogato. You've probably never heard of it. How does signal get affected if the drone has linear polarization and the goggles have circular polarized? Blunty, I know for a fact, and I don't want to put you off, but this is a very technical answer, and I know for a fact we answered this on a live stream recently. This exact question, I did probably a 10-minute discussion about it. So I'm going to try and find that for you. Let's see if that helps. No? Polarization. Yeah, here it is. Bingo. 1 year ago. Has it been that long? It feels like it was not a year ago. We're going to pull that one up. ID Drew. All right, Japard. We'll take her easy now.
I feel like at this point we've done things so many times that sometimes it's hard to remember.
Oh, yeah. I've done multiple versions of this, depending on... That was 3 years ago. Can I sort by... I can't sort search results. It's a shame. I've answered this question so many times. Let's find the best one. Should I swap my DJI FPV VTX antennas to linear to match? Yeah. Okay. I guess we're going to go with can I use circular polarized antennas with DJI 3 goggles linear? This video is, I guess, what I would recommend for the interaction between linear and circular. You can search for this on the Joshua Bardwell Livestream Clips channel or just YouTube in general. Joshua Bardwell, can I use circular polarized antennas with linear? The takeaway is that there is a small amount of loss, but the loss is not dependent on the relative position of the antennas, and so it's fine. There's a small amount of loss, but it's not that big a deal. Okay? And hopefully those two things count as a comprehensive answer to your question. My Axis, thank you for $5 from Diego Espada. My Axis Flying Manta SE adds throttle by itself when flying with my iPhone mounted. Could the extra weight be affecting the PID tune? It's not the weight, it's that it's flopping around. I'm going to guess you've got your iPhone mounted vertically, although the answer still is the same even if you don't. But especially if you have the iPhone mounted vertically, it's flopping around so much, it's making your PID controller freak out. You need a more rigid mount. Or it just may not be possible depending on how it's mounted. Yeah, anything that moves causes resonance and makes the flight controller freak out, especially heavy things that are moving around. 45 years of smoking, not dead yet. As Dennis Leary said, yeah, it takes years off your life, but it's the years at the end. It's the years at the end. I don't support that viewpoint. I have a feeling by the time I get to the years at the end, like, you know, imagine somebody who's 70 years old, which is like, statistically speaking, you're getting there, but you're not, like, you could have another 20 years. I have a feeling that 70-year-old who's like, you know, on an oxygen tank because they smoked for 50 years, suddenly Dennis Leary's joke about it's the years at the end compared to some other 70-year-old who's like, you know, still doing triathlons. You know, obviously smoking is not the the only thing that'll make the difference there. There's a lot of genetics involved, etc. But I have a feeling that by the time you get to the end, suddenly like when you're 30 and Dennis Leary's like, yeah, but it's the years at the end. Who cares? I'll be dead anyway. I'm going to smoke. I have a feeling by the time you get to the end, you suddenly are like, I actually decided I would rather be able to breathe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could be
YOLO,
a lot of, yeah.
YOLO is a young idea, you know.
And by the way, like, R.I.P. Hunter Thompson, right? That guy. There's people out there who YOLO all the way into the grave, and God bless him. You know what I mean? But, you know, I'm going to be watching them YOLO into the grave while I, like, try to keep my blood pressure in check. And I don't want to live forever, but... But I'd like to, like, not like, yeah. The older I, again, drink every time Bardwell says the older I get, but the older I get, the more I think that it's not necessarily, like, obviously your day is going to come and you don't know when that day is going to be. It could be tomorrow, it could be 30, you don't know. But today, I would like to, like, not feel like shit. You know what I mean? That's my goal. My goal isn't to live forever. It's that when I wake up tomorrow, I don't feel like shit. Like my hip doesn't hurt. I'm not like out of breath going up the stairs. I just want to be able to like live my life. That's my health goal. Anyway. Oh, 14:59. Oh my God, it's almost over. Well, guess what, guys? We will be here tomorrow at 8 p.m. For the live stream. And we're skipping the week after that, FYI, if you're watching the schedule. And we will be back. I'll let you know when we're going to be back. It won't be too long. But we will be back tomorrow. Bandit FPV, when's Bardwell going to be on the next Rotor Riot episode? I should click on these questions, Blunty, so you get the timestamps. When's Bardwell? Did we do the live stream clip about me and Rotor Riot yet?
No, I have not posted that yet.
Okay. Well, let's get that one up. Not to mess with your schedule, but because people, since I put it out there, we should put it out there. There's a live stream clip going to go up soon, I guess, on the live stream clips channel about my relationship with Rotor Riot. Don't. I'm not going to spoil it. You can go watch it, but at the same time, it's not like that big a deal. But it does clarify when I'll be on the next Rotor Riot episode. When I was on the last one. Where did we find the live stream schedule, guys? Every YouTube channel. Let me go to an incognito tab so that it doesn't go to my personal Joshua Bardwell YouTube, my personal view of the YouTube. Sorry. If you go to my YouTube channel, and this is true for every YouTube channel, on the main page of my YouTube channel, there is a list of live streams. And that includes all past live streams, but also all future live streams. Currently, there's only one live stream scheduled for February 23rd at 8 p.m. Now, I don't always schedule live streams like weeks in advance. But like a lot of times when I know I'm going to be home for a block of live streams, I'll just schedule them all so you can look there. Now, if you look here and you don't see any live streams scheduled, it could be that we're still going to stream tomorrow. Sometimes I schedule them at the last minute, much to Blunty's frustration. I like to say that if I was my own employee, I would probably fire myself. But since I am my own boss, all my employees, and Blunty's not an employee per se, but all the people who work with me have to just put up with my foibles because that's the advantage of being the boss and the consequence. But you can find out every live stream I have scheduled here. Just go to my channel and click on live. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for today, though. Thank you guys. Oh, we had more super chats come in. Okay. No more super chats. I'm ending the stream. Nia Photograph. Thank you for 30 Polish slotty. Can I run to a 5.8 gigahertz analog VTX on one drone? One for thermal, one for... Can I run two cameras? Okay. Yes, you can. You can't run two VTXs on the same drone. You can, but you need a lot of physical separation between them. On most smaller drones, the VTXs will be so close that even if you put them on different channels, they'll mess with each other. It won't work well. You're going to want one on, like, if you one on race 1 and run on race 8, and then you're also going to need like 6 or 8 or 10 inches of separation, and maybe you'll get away with it. What you should do instead is run a camera switcher. Run a camera switcher, run two cameras to the same VTX. Look up FPV drone camera switcher, and you'll find what I'm looking for. If you need to run two at the same time because you want one person looking at one camera and one person looking at the other camera at the same time, you have to get physical separation between the VTXs, regardless of... You could have one on 1.2 gigahertz and one on 5.8 gigahertz, and if they're 4 inches away, they'll still mess with each other. Okay? Best, most versatile go-to goggles in 2026. Say it, and I'm buying HDZero V2 goggle. Oh, controversial. I've talked about it before. That's going to do it, guys. We're out. Oh, excuse me. Ciati FPV is streaming next. Go watch his stream. That's going to do it for me. See you tomorrow, guys. Bye, everybody. Bye, Blunty. Thanks, Blunty.